AFR On Demand is brought to you by Breck Golf. Try Beaver Creek today, just 20 minutes from downtown Baton Rouge in the Zachary area. They've got a PGA Tour driving range, a short game practice area, 30 to 40-yard practice shots. It's a great place to chip and putt and practice if you don't have time for a full round. Book your tee time today, golf.breck.org, golf.breck.org.
Matt Moscona.
I'm very important.
After further review.
Say it one more time.
After further review with Matt Moscona.
And here we go.
Live from the Raising Cane studio.
Let's ride!
Hour 2. Off we go. Welcome aboard. Glad you're with us. AFR presented by Decision Critical Concierge Nursing. I'm Matt.
Love you, Matt.
Cassie Spazzali.
Oh, look what you made me do. Look what you made me do.
Muso.
I'm a Barbie girl in the Barbie world.
And Mr. Toby Tomplay. All right, we're here. Glad you are as well. Get out there and make it a good one. Man, we are loaded up this hour. Ross Dellenger in 15 minutes. Todd Graffagnini, bottom of this hour.
Yeah, you're right.
Marler next hour. Eddie Radosevich talking some OU Sooner baseball. We got a ton to do. Saints are beginning their top 30 visits. It was a good opportunity to bring our buddy Ross Jackson back. Of course, Locked on Saints and LouisianaSports.net. Yo, dude, how are you?
Hey, man, doing great. Thanks for having me.
Our pleasure. Two guys I want to start with that are intriguing for different reasons are Mansoor Delane and Makai Lemon. Let's start with Delane, the LSU guy. Maybe start, Ross, if you would, trying to gauge what the Saints' interest might be in Delane at 8 overall.
Yeah, look, I think that there would be some genuine interest there, or certainly some genuine intrigue. These 30 visits are referred to as top 30 visits, but it's worth clarifying that it doesn't mean that everyone that gets brought in on these are considered top 30 players on the Saints board. It's just kind of a nickname for what the visit is. But it does give them an opportunity to bring them into the facility, which is kind of the unique piece to it, and they get an opportunity to kind of do, physicals, medical checks with the team's medical staff, as well as, do some meetings and get to meet the coaching staff, as well as potential teammates, things like that. You don't get to do any on-field work with them or anything like that. But for a guy like Mansoor Delane, I don't know that they necessarily need to. I mean, this is a guy that's right up the road and that played a little hurt last season and still played lights out. He was still top 5 in both categories of passer rating allowed amongst qualifying cornerbacks when it came to man coverage and zone coverage. His overall 40% catch percentage allowed was one of the best, or force rather, was one of the best in college football last year. I think that the interest there could be real because he's probably, if not I don't even want to say probably, he is the best pure corner in this draft. And the Saints maybe, have a need at inside corner, having lost Delonte Taylor to the Tennessee Titans. But that doesn't mean that they don't feel like they have that solution in-house and then could therefore add a perimeter corner and then move somebody like a Quincy Riley, for instance, inside, who has over 100 snaps of slot experience from his collegiate days. And so I think that the interest there is genuine because of how scheme versatile Delane is and how physical he plays, which matches very much Brandon Staley's defense. And then the high football IQ is obviously a big part of it as well. So I think there would be genuine interest there for sure.
Now, let's walk through some of the other top 30 visits that we know are going to take place. And I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, but Lemon from USC is also coming on a top 30 as well?
Correct. Yeah, he is one of the 4 that we know of for sure. And he's one of the more interesting ones. He's another guy that probably doesn't have a lot of medical questions, but obviously made some noise in terms of his media availability at the NFL Combine and didn't run and didn't do a lot of the different things there. And so it's an opportunity to kind of bring him in and just kind of talk to him and get to know a little bit more of who he is as a player. I think if you look across all the Saints free agency signings, from the punter Ryan Wright to the big addition and running back Travis Etienne, character was a big part of each one of those guys. You could see it as they, went up to the podium. There was high character, high confidence, high charisma. And I think they want to get to know some of these other guys to see if they kind of check those boxes as well. I think that's a very important piece to the Kellen Moore puzzle when it comes to adding players to a team.
As far as Lemon, where this isn't a potential number 8 overall guy, is it? Or are we talking later in the draft?
He was considered a top, he's in that sort of top 3 wide receivers in this year's draft class. His teammate Jacoby Lane is more of a 3rd, 4th round player. But Makai Lemon, 1,100 yards last year, 11 touchdown receptions last year, outproduced both the other top 2 guys, in Carnell Tate as well as Jordan Tyson. So could be in conversation as a top 10 guy, probably more a middle of the 1st round guy that you want to keep an eye out on just in case he falls out of the 1st round.
Okay.
I don't know that he's necessarily the guy you invest a top 10 selection in unless he blows you away by coming in and meeting your staff, right? Because we all know it only takes one team to kind of fall in love, and then all of a sudden the player's a top 5, top 10 selection. But I think probably this is a player that you get to know because there's the chance that he falls out of the 1st round, or you potentially look at what a lot of teams have been doing lately, which is using your 1st round pick and then trading back up into the 1st. There's a lot of other scenarios in which you at least want to make sure that you have all the information that you need on this guy. And I think that with some of the character questions and things like that, you probably want to bring him in and get an opportunity to get those questions answered with your own interactions as opposed to through hearsay.
Okay, Ross Jackson's with us. He's on Twitter at Ross Jackson NOLA. You can read his stuff at LouisianaSports.net. You can watch or listen to Locked On Saints. So we mentioned there's 4 top 30 visits. We talked about Delane and Lemon. The other 2 are Louisville wide receiver Chris Bell and Penn State safety Zakee Wheatley. Let's take those one at a time here and start with Bell, and that's obviously intriguing because that's Tyler Shuck's old teammate.
Mm-hmm. Yep, and he is a guy that makes perfect sense as a top 30 visit or as a 30 visit. You want to bring him in and get an idea of what his progress is when it comes to that late season ACL injury that he had. Now, when he was at the Combine, he said that the week after that was when he was cleared to start running. And his doctor, Dan Cooper, who's one of the best in the business when it comes to ACL repairs and sports surgery in particular, told him that he might be ready for training camp. And so now getting an opportunity to bring him in and get your medical staff to get a look at him and get an idea of what his progress looks like, what his timeline looks like, all these other things. Really wise decision by teams to bring Chris Bell in. Explosive player, 6'2", 220 pounds, really kind of compact runner who people expected would have run in the 4.3s had he been able to run, probably a 4.4 guy, just as good in that case. Big time yards after catch threat, kind of Deebo Samuel-ish. And so it would really give the Saints 2 things. It would give them that yards after catch receiver, which they don't really have that kind of threat on their roster and haven't for some time. And then, as you mentioned, former teammate of Tyler Shuck, that's the guy you're trying to build around. If you're bringing in somebody that's already got chemistry with him, and obvious value there.
Okay, let's talk about Wheatley, the safety from Penn State.
Yeah, and I should say real quick, too, on Bell, probably talking day 2 for him. Sorry about that. I should have mentioned that. But day 2 for him, probably pick 42 would be a great spot for him. He could sneak into the bottom of the 1st round, but if he makes it to 42, obviously a good selection there. When it comes to Wheatley, we're talking about a big safety, right? Kind of profiles as like a slot safety, big nickel type, 6'2", 200-plus pounds, really physical player, can get downhill, kind of is a little bit more of the Alontae Taylor role type, somebody that kind of fits the same measure as like a Keontae Scott out of Miami, Jalen Kilgore out of South Carolina. These are all guys that feel like would be good matches to be able to come in and maybe take on that role. So let's say that the Saints feel really good about a player like Ohio State's Caleb Downs, but he goes off the board before 8, and so they decide to go wide receiver or another position at 8. This is a guy you can come back to in day 2, either at pick 42 or 73, and potentially invest in to come in and handle that sort of slot role for you. Very versatile guy, played safety, played corner, played slot, played dime linebacker, just kind of checks all the boxes for the play style and experience that you want to bring in for somebody that's going to take on an expansive role like that in Brandon Staley's defense. Yeah,
Russ, how big of a need do you think safety is for New Orleans?
I don't think safety's a big need. Them having Jonas Sanker going into his 2nd year after he impressed as a rookie, They brought back Julian Blackman. They still have guys like Jordan Howden. And then, of course, they still have their leader in that room and leader on their defense right now in Justin Reed. I think really it's that slot corner perspective, which often gets also called slot safety. But in this Saints defense, that's a cornerback position. And so I think that's really the big need and what makes cornerback such a big need. And they've got a couple of ways they can address it. They could bring somebody in that specifically takes that star role, which is kind of that hybrid inside, outside, little bit of run stopper, a little bit of coverage guy, a little bit of pass rusher. Same thing we saw Alontae Taylor do last year. We've seen C.J. Gardner-Johnson in the past hold that role. So you could bring somebody in specifically to take on that role, and there are a handful of those fits. But if you aren't able to do that, getting accustomed to or getting to know some of these outside corners that might allow you to move somebody around could potentially be another way to address that position. And I think that's maybe where the Mansoor Delane opportunity at 8 could make some sense for the world.
Ross, before you go, give me another player or an angle, some storyline here as pro days are getting ready to start that you're interested in that we should all be keeping an eye on.
Yeah, I think that when it comes to those pro days, I think the biggest thing that you're looking at is agility scores now. And so this isn't really like a specific player, but just over the course of these pro days, there are a lot of people that go in and they test at the combine, but they only run the 40, they only do the vertical leap, they only do the broad jump. They don't run things like 3-cone and short shuttle. And those 3-cone and short shuttle times can be really important for players, particularly at skill positions, because it gives you a little bit of an understanding of their short area quickness and their ability to be able to change direction and keep their momentum going. And so as you start to see some of the results of these pro days, looking for the 3-cone results that come in under 7 seconds, looking for the short shuttle results that come in under 4.3 seconds, gives you an idea of somebody that brings a little bit of those pieces of the game with them, the quickness, the agility, the ability to change direction, and what they can do in the short area. That becomes really important for things like route running, as well as, of course, as a linebacker changing direction. You're doing that all the time as a coverage player, right? So that's my big thing for these pro days, is the ideal opportunity to finally be able to start getting some of those agility numbers so you get a better idea of what sort of the athleticism of these players are before you invest draft capital in them.
It's Ross Jackson at Ross Jackson NOLA. Give him a follow there. Of course, you can read him at LouisianaSports.net, listen or watch Locked On Saints. Okay, man, we'll be in touch. Thanks.
Sounds great. Thanks, bud. Take care. Stay safe. Talk to you soon.
Be well. It's After Further Review. We're brought to you by Lee Michaels Fine Jewelry, lmfj.com. Lee Michaels Fine Jewelry. Spring's here. Of course, a lot of people get engaged during the spring as the weather gets nicer, or maybe you had a spring wedding, and so that means you have a spring anniversary. Maybe you have a milestone anniversary coming up. Lee Michaels Fine Jewelry, they can help with that beautiful forever diamond or that gift that will be remembered in your family and passed down for generations. You know, at Lee Michaels, you're not going to walk in and see a disheveled guy like punching numbers into a calculator to get you that best deal. They have an amazing selection at always great prices, no matter your budget. And when you walk in, they're going to make you feel like you're making an important purchase, because you are. It's a beautiful piece of jewelry, a symbol of your love for whoever it is that you love for whatever occasion that will be hopefully passed down in your family forever. That should feel like a special thing. And at Lee Michaels, they specialize in the Lee Michaels experience. Walk in the door and you'll understand what I'm talking about. It's Lee Michaels Fine Jewelry. 9 locations in all: Baton Rouge, New Orleans, Lafayette, Shreveport, and online at lmfj.com. All right, y'all, it is After Further Review. Our Thursday show is presented by Decision Critical Concierge Nursing. We will talk some Pels with Todd Graffagnini in about 15 minutes from right now. Get you caught up on the NCAA tournament in Hour 3 with Chris Marler. Eddie Radosevich covers the Oklahoma Sooners. Will be here to give us a little thumbnail preview of Boomer Sooners. They come to the box this weekend. When we come back, though, we're headed to D.C. Ross Dellenger joins us to talk about the new Lane Kiffin rule. We'll explain next. AFR.
AFR.
When I tell you about DuPlessis Builders every day, the thing that I love to be able to hammer home for anyone who's thinking about building a pool or an outdoor kitchen is quality. You know, there's so many people, talk to anybody who's ever built a pool, put in a pool at their house. Chances are they're going to tell you about, and you're going to hear horror stories about their pool builder. What always stands out to me about Derek and his team over at DuPlessis is their commitment to an incredible customer service experience in what is a truly invasive and intrusive experience. I mean, you have crews that are bringing heavy equipment and digging a giant hole in your backyard in a process that's going to take 2 months. That is invasive, intrusive, and generally not fun. But they make it as pleasant an experience as possible at Duplessis Builders, and they stand by their work with a 10-year workmanship warranty. DuplessisBuilders.net.
After further review with Matt Moscona, presented by Decision Critical Concierge Nursing. Healthcare for your lifestyle. Learn more at DecisionCriticalBR.com.
Congress about to pass a Lane Kiffin rule? Maybe. Ross Dellenger from Yahoo and a contributor over at On3 hops aboard here. Yo, dude, how are you?
Good, Matt. How you doing?
I'm doing really well. Okay, so Congress is going to pass the Lane Kiffin rule, maybe. What is it?
Yeah, well, probably unlikely, but, this is what Congress does. So the SCORE Act, which I've been on the show, I think, talked about quite a bit before, it's a college sports bill that's currently working its way through the House of Representatives. It's supposed to come up for a vote on the floor in April, and they are modifying it. It was supposed to come up for a vote in September and then again in December, and it did not because they didn't have the votes. But they claim, the Republican leadership of the House, that they have the votes. Steve Scalise and Mike Johnson, both from Louisiana, have the House leaders there. They are whipping votes to get the bill through. And the bill does a lot of things, but it's being modified to whip those votes. To get those votes, it's being changed a bit. And one of the changes being made basically would provide guidelines for in the NCAA or any government body to make rules. And one of the guidelines is around coaches and coaches not leaving their team in the middle of a season. So that's one of the guidelines, is that would be sort of prohibited. So as one of the congressional staff members told me earlier this week, it's sort of the Lane Kiffin rule.
Okay, so you said it probably won't pass. Why not?
Well, the SCORE Act is a Republican-authored bill, and it does three main things. And they're all probably basically at the request of the NCAA and the conferences, right? It gives them legal protection to create rules and enforce their rules, antitrust protection and exemption. And it preempts all these different state NIL laws. And it also deems athletes as students and not employees. Well, it has zero support from the Democrats in the Senate. So while it may pass the House on a slim majority, it is very unlikely in the way it's written now, at least, to pass the other chamber, the Senate, where it needs 60 votes, which would mean it needs 7 Democrats. And there are 0 Democrats supporting it. So if it does get out of the House, Matt, it would have to be modified again pretty dramatically in the Senate to have any chance. And right now, 2 senators kind of are working on a separate independent Senate bill. Maria Cantwell, the Democrat from Washington, and Ted Cruz, the Republican from Texas, have been working on a sort of a separate bill that has some of the components of the SCORE Act, but unlikely will it have the Lane Kiffin rule like the SCORE Act might have.
Why?
Well, I just think that's a hard one to maybe get bipartisan support for. They say that the more you add into a bill, the more difficult it is to pass the chambers. So the SCORE Act is undergoing all these modifications to add all this stuff in an attempt to whip Republican votes and get the votes. But it's also sort of dragging it down in a way to where when it gets to the Senate, it's going to have so much stuff with it, that it's just harder to pass. And so the Senate bill that the separate bill that Ted Cruz and Maria Cantwell are discussing will probably be a little more narrow and won't include all these things. But it's interesting. And, another modification 2 other modifications that the SCORE Act is seeing, which could be in a Senate bill, more likely to be in a Senate bill, is a limitation on transfers. allowing the NCAA to make a transfer rule, perhaps the old rule, Matt, of the one-time transfer policy where you get one time to transfer and then you have to sit out. And then the other change is kind of overhauling the governance of the NCAA, perhaps even just removing the NCAA from governing college athletics and having instead sort of a board of commissioners or congressionally chartered board of some sort.
Ross Dellenger is our guest, at Ross Dellenger. Yahoo Sports contributes it on 3 as well. Ross, I guess I can keep asking like why over and over, but I think what ultimately everybody agrees on, I mean, everybody who's a fan of college football, is you want some type of uniformity. Whatever that looks like, I don't know what it looks like. And if it's not going to come from the states because that's 50 different sets of rules, then you need federal law in theory to enact something. But it feels like we're never, ever getting closer to actually having some answer from the federal government. So am I misreading that, or do you feel like there is actually a real possibility that we can get some type of concrete rules to govern college athletics from the federal government, from Congress?
Yeah, it's been 7 years, right? It's been 7 years of lobbying by the NCAA to try to get federal legislation that basically allows them to create or at least enforce their rules without being sued. That's kind of the bottom line.
Yeah.
Right. And the other part, yeah, you made note of the different NIL state laws, which create kind of in a differing schools are using their state law in different ways, and all these state laws are different, and they're applying it differently, and so it's an uneven playing field. So, and then the third issue is the employment issue, where a lot of schools and conferences don't want their athletes to be employed. So there's like those three issues, right? It's like we want to enforce our rules and not be sued. Mm-hmm. We want uniform rules, so eliminate all these state laws, and then we don't want athletes to be employees. So those are like the three buckets here. And there's a lot of agreement that in Democrats and Republicans both that certain NCAA rules should be enforced without legal issues.
Right.
Eligibility is a good example of one, right? Eligibility would be a good example of one. So there's some agreement there. There's almost universal agreement in preempting all these state laws. So you have a uniform code or standard. There is not as much agreement on having in a bill something that would prohibit athletes from being eventually deemed employees. There is not agreement there. That's a big hurdle that's sort of standing in the way. I'm on with you and Feinbaum a lot, and the question I get from Feinbaum, especially every time I'm on, is like, what are the chances, right, of a federal bill happening? And I would say within the last year, the chances have increased, I think, with every month. I think they have. The problem is that the chances started at like 2%. So now we're at like 15%, maybe.
Okay.
Maybe 20%. I don't know. But it's still a low percentage, but it is increasing because lawmakers are starting to take notice of sort of the money spent in college athletics and how it's being spent, especially public money, university funds being spent. And so I think that's catching a lot of people's eye. And another reason is sort of just the administration, right? The Trump administration, he had a big roundtable over this 2 weeks ago. So they are very invested in sort of the issue. So for those reasons, it does feel like it's getting closer. And, some news I'll say on your show a little bit, I haven't really reported it. It's nothing really too groundbreaking, but for a second time in a week, Maria Cantwell, the Democrat senator in the Senate, in Republican Senator Ted Cruz met for a second time today within a week's span over college sports legislation. And that has not happened in a very long time.
Okay. Why is that significant?
Because those two, basically Ted Cruz and Maria Cantwell, will control college sports legislation. They have to come to a bipartisan agreement for any legislation to move through the Senate. And without the Senate's approval and 60 votes, which includes 7 Democrats, and Maria Cantwell can get those 7 Democrats if there's an agreement with Ted Cruz. And they have not been talking very regularly, and they are now.
Okay. The last thing, I don't want to go too long, but I know from the roundtable with the president a couple of weeks ago, of that was expected an executive order. Do we expect that executive order will have any type of, executive power that could actually help run or govern college sports?
Unlikely.
Okay.
As someone said to me, our country runs on congressional actions in court orders, not executive orders. And so it's the courts in Congress that will shape the future of college athletics. It's not the executive branch. An executive order, and the president even acknowledged this openly 2 weeks ago, an executive order can be and likely will be challenged. And a lot of the things that will be in that executive order are policies already deemed by the courts to be unlawful. So it's unlikely that an executive order will be at least the long-term solution. Could it be some kind of temporary solution before it gets sued? I guess. Yeah. Sure. And one is coming. Within the next week or two, there will be a second executive order for the president.
All right. Ross Dellenger, follow him on Twitter at Ross Dellenger, Yahoo, and contributor at On3 as well. All right. We always appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, Matt. Thanks.
All right. Be well. Our Thursday shows are brought to you by Decision Critical Concierge Nursing. Let me hop. We'll get to a break real quick. We'll come back, talk some Pels with Graff, who all of a sudden the Pels have won 4 or 5, and the one they lost, they kind of blew the game at Houston. So they're hot. We'll talk to Graff next. AFR.
AFR.
Speaking of hot, as these temperatures continue to climb, it's 77 right now. We'll be back in the 80s this weekend. If it's hot in your house, call River City's 1 Hour Air, 752-0001, 752-0001, 752-0001, or 1hourbr.com. Spell it out, O-N-E, 1hourbr.com. They'll send a technician to your home. When that technician's on the way, by the way, they always want you to feel comfortable with whoever's in your home. So when the technician's on the way, you'll get a call, a text, and an email alerting you the technician's on the way, name of the technician, photo of that technician, and reviews from past customers about that technician. They want you to feel comfortable, not only with the service, but who is performing that service. Is River City's 1 Hour Air. 752-0001, 752-0001.
After further review with Matt Moscona, presented by Decision Critical Concierge Nursing. Healthcare for your lifestyle. Learn more at decisioncriticalbr.com.
Trey, pop a 3 right angle. Nothing but net. Trey begin.
Todd Graffagnini on the call. Todd Graffagnini on your radio. Graff, what up?
Matt, what you doing, man?
Paying attention. I'm paying attention to the Pelicans. I
figured that's why you texted me. I was in shock.
Well, see, Graff, here's the thing. I've never stopped paying attention to the Pelicans, and we're an affiliate, and so I hear you and JD tons. And when I'm at home or not in the car, whatever, I'll watch a lot. This team this year, as you know, just hasn't warranted a lot of coverage. But man, they're playing well. So let's just start with an easy one. What has changed?
I think it's very simple, Matt, and I appreciate your patronage, Matt, despite the lack of coverage. And look, it was not warranted at the beginning of the season, obviously.
Yeah.
But I think I can answer the question very simply. Health.
Yeah.
You have guys back. And one thing I've learned in my 7 years doing this, Matt, when your best players don't play for an extended period of time, it is really, really difficult to win in the NBA. When your best players do play consistently, you're going to give yourself a pretty good chance to win. And that's what I think you're seeing right now. We could go down the list, but Herb Jones, who isn't going to wow you every night with what he does statistically as far as scoring the basketball. What he brings to the table defensively, this is a first-team all-defensive player 2 years ago when the Pels were in the playoffs. Well, when he does not play this year, he's missed 23 games. The Pels are 3-20. When Sadiq Bey doesn't play this year, the Pels are 1-6. Very important cogs to what's going on right now, and I don't think I have to tell you what DeJounte Murray has brought to the table since he has returned after missing the first 8 games of the season. So,
I'm so glad.
Well done.
I'm so glad we have an opportunity to bring it back. The DeJounte Murray piece of this, Graf, is fascinating because there was so much anticipation before last season, and quite literally the first freaking game of the year, he gets hurt. And so we just have never seen this manifest. So for those who have not seen DeJounte Murray play for the New Orleans Pelicans, what does he give to, how does he make them different?
Well, first of all, he is a true point guard. He can run the offense. And even more importantly, Matt, when the game is close, this is a guy who has been a closer for the teams he has played for in the past, meaning he is not afraid to take the game-winning shot if that's what it comes down to. He can calm things down when you're in clutch situations. Despite what happened on Friday night against Houston, and I'm probably never going to get over that game, but I digress. He's just a guy you can count on every night. And yes, Matt, last year it was devastating because that opening night against the Chicago Bulls, you're thinking, wow, I think we've got something here with Murray. And, you're thinking about, all right, what kind of a run is this team is going to go on? And I go to my local pub celebrating an opening night win, and I had not even gotten the first sip of my drink back down on the bar, and I get the tweet that he fractured his hand.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking to myself, you got to be absolutely friggin' kidding me. So he's out till December. He comes back, he plays a couple weeks, and then he tears his Achilles. It was just a really bad year on the court and off the court for him. Well, I think he's come back now, Matt, like a guy who hadn't played in a year and is absolutely ravenous to play basketball. And we are seeing the I'm going to say it here, DeJounte Murray. Yeah, we're seeing him as we hoped he would be at the beginning of last year. And don't forget also, Matt, this is another he's a second team all NBA defensive player. So that's 2 lockdown defenders that you have in your starting lineup now that you do not have for the majority of this season. And when those, especially Herb Jones, when he was not playing, the defense was atrocious. I mean, absolutely atrocious. Herb Jones can guard anybody on the court, 1 through 5. And you did not have that. And rotations were different. And Herb Jones can just mask a lot of things that are going wrong because he's that good of a defender. Now that he's back and now that Murray's back, you're starting to see it on the court.
Todd Graffagnini's with us, radio voice of the Pels. A true back-to-back. They beat the Clips last night. They're back on the Florida night against L.A. in New Orleans. You referenced the game against Houston, and that I know you. I was actually listening to the pregame show yesterday, and actually maybe was it yesterday when you
might have been the Dallas game. It
was Dallas. It was Dallas, and you all were sort of rehashing the end of the Rockets game where the blew a 2-score lead in the final 30 seconds. Graf. I mean, it was like other than that, you've won 4 of your last 5, and the one you lost, you blew. So I look at this team and I go, okay, well, when healthy, like, what do you think is, like, what is realistic for this team? I don't want to get my hopes up that they're maybe figuring something out and going in the right direction because I feel like, fool me once, all that sort of stuff. But But yeah, like
No,
what
I
are
understand.
they?
This is what, okay, short-term goal, Matt, not even looking towards next year yet. I know that's going to come up. The season, goodness gracious, Matt, we only have 3 weeks left. It's unreal how it's gone now, because after the All-Star break, it truly is a sprint. It's not a marathon anymore. There's only 12 games left, including tonight. So realistically, this year, and I said this before we started to go on the stretch we're on right now, when you're playing a really, really good mix of teams that are not trying to win and teams that are absolutely trying to win, that are in the thick of the playoff race, be it Western Conference or Eastern Conference. And you played one of those teams last night, you're going to play them again tonight. Yeah. They need to win to the Clippers. So this is a really good test. I'm calling for 30 wins. If you can get to 30 wins after the absolute disaster of a start that this team had, I think it would be remarkable as far as the turnaround. Matt, you're talking about a team that's had 2 9-game losing streaks, a 7-game losing streak, and a 6-game losing streak in a season. That's brutal.
Yeah,
that's brutal. And they have come back from it and are playing their best basketball of the year. And a lot of it has to do with, look, there's no draft pick next year. There's no first-round draft pick. So you are playing your guys, and they're available to play. And that makes all the difference. But like I said, the key is you're playing teams. That's why you're going to get a pretty good grasp of what you got. Because in these next 3 weeks, you're playing teams that are in the absolute middle of the playoff race that have to win. Clippers tonight. We played Houston, of course, on Friday. We're going on the road next week, Matt, playing in Madison Square Garden against the Knicks, third in the East. You're playing Detroit, tops in the East. Toronto, who you just saw last week here, they're sixth in the East. Those are 3 top 6 teams in the Eastern Conference that need to win games. And that's why these last, 12 games are going to be a whole lot of fun, no matter, you're only playing 2 teams left that are really, quote unquote, tanking, and that's Utah and Sacramento. Everybody else is in it. So I think you're going to get pretty decent sample size of what you got here.
You want to get to 30, you got to go 6-6 over the final 12, 500.
Yep.
I mean,
it's doable.
It's
doable.
It does feel doable. Hey, before you go, one other thing I wanted to ask you about. I saw Schmidt tweeted this earlier. Since James Borrego took over, the Pelicans are first in the league in rim rate. That's the percentage of the field goal attempts at the rim. And the gap between the Pels and second place Detroit is greater than the gap between Detroit and Washington, who's 18th on this list. Give me a thought, if you would, Graff, on James Borrego. If this is, maybe if you want to talk about that, their ability to finish at the rim or to get to the rim, but also just a thought at Borrego, because, Graff, they're going to be finding a permanent head coach after a dozen more games.
No, look, as far as rim rate, I'm not an analytics type. I know what points in the paint is, and I would equate points in the paint to rim rate. The Pels have been pretty much number 1 points in the paint since third, fourth week of the season. Them and Detroit have been 1 and 2 the entire year. And a lot of that has to do with Zion Williamson, who averages 15.5 points in the paint a night.
Yeah.
And he's just, that type of player. They have taken advantage of, their ability to drive the basketball as well, and get some easy buckets that way. They've been first in the league in drive points per game most of the year, also at about 32 points a game. So that all of that equates to points in the paint. I'll tell you what about James Borrego. I think he's done a fantastic job. It is not an easy situation when you have to take over for your former boss. He's Willie Green's top assistant. Willie Green is let go, and now you're the boss. So it was a slow adjustment period, because he was trying to implement what he wanted to do as a head coach system-wise on the fly. There was no practice time at all when Borrego took over. He was trying to implement his system during shoot-arounds and closed bowl practices before games. It was literally like that. once the team got some days off and some practice time, it was especially during the play-in tournament when you had, those 3-4 day stretches where you weren't playing while the other teams were playing in the in-season tournament, in December. And that's when you started to see a little bit of headway in what Borrego was trying to do. And now, since these guys have played together for a while, you've seen some absolute definite rotations. You've seen the lineup with Murray in it, and you've seen the lineup without Murray in it, Murray present, who, by the way, is not playing tonight because he's not going to play the second of a back-to-back. He has not done that since he has returned. But guys know their roles, and they know what the rotations are going to be. And it's a very comforting thing when you have an idea of what is going to happen before the ball is even thrown up in the air. I just think he's done an outstanding job as James Borrego, and absolutely he has warranted very close consideration for becoming the permanent head coach. I don't think there's any doubt about it. He's actually creeping up on 500. He's not going to get there because there's not enough games left in the season. But if you go on a major streak here at the end of the year, he's going to be very, very close to being a 500 head coach since taking over. And from where it started when he took over, that's just masterful stuff.
Yeah. Graff, we got to run. Appreciate it as always. Thank you.
Thanks, Matt.
All right,
anytime.
Man. Be well. Todd Graffagnini, radio voice of the Pels. Wrap up hour 2 next.
AFR.
Brought to you by the Watermark and the Renaissance. Watermark Downtown, Renaissance Southtown, 2 amazing hotel properties. Watermark Downtown, Baton Rouge, voted by you the best hotel in the Best of 225 Award. So I can say it, but there's a whole lot more weight when you all say it overwhelmingly. Best 225 Awards, best hotel in Baton Rouge, Watermark Baton Rouge. Take one step inside the door, you'll get it. It is the picture of luxury. It is gorgeous. The original Louisiana National Bank building in downtown. As a matter of fact, Guarantee, our company Guarantee, at one point during their history, 80, 90 years ago, actually occupied one of the floors of what is now the Watermark Baton Rouge. I digress. It's a beautiful piece of our city's history in downtown. The Gregory, the restaurant there in the lobby, is awesome. Sunday brunch at the Gregory, amazing. Free valet parking whenever you're eating at the Gregory, so you never have to worry about paying to park downtown. Just get downtown and experience Watermark Baton Rouge.
After further review with Matt Moscona, presented by Decision Critical Concierge Nursing. Healthcare for your lifestyle. Learn more at DecisionCriticalBR.com.
Get Tigers in the Pros just a second. Remember, we are brought to you by Shawbills Tire and Auto Service, ShawBillsTire.com. Name brand tires at wholesale prices. I tell you every day, tires are a commodity. You get the exact same product a lot of different places. You want to buy a Michelin, a Bridgestone, a BF Goodrich, Firestone, you're getting the same tire. So why not go to the place that's going to sell you that tire at the cheapest price? Shawbills guarantees it. It's part of the Charlie's Dozen, their price match guarantee. If you buy a tire at Shawbills, find that advertised cheaper somewhere else, they'll refund you 125% of the difference. They're not going to be beat on price, and they're going to treat you awesome. It's Shawbills. And, of course, oil change, tire rotation, need new wiper blades, anything. Check engine light, brake squeaking. They could fix all of it for you. Shawbills Tire and Auto Service. ShawBillsTire.com. ShawBillsTire.com. Shawbills. We keep you rolling. Okay, Muse, Tigers in the Pros. Hit it.
Tigers in the Pros. They still bleed purple and gold. They're just really rich now.
Start with some NFL free agency. The Detroit Lions signed free agent Damone Clark on Wednesday evening. The team announced Clark, 25, finished the season with the Texans. They claimed him off waivers after the Cowboys released him. 6 games with Houston. Majority of his snaps came on special teams. Former 5th-round pick will now be with the Detroit Lions for the 2026 season. In the most shocking news of the day, the Pittsburgh Pirates have announced Paul Skeens will be their opening day starter.
That's not shocking.
For the 3rd year in a row. Rookie of the Year, Cy Young Award winner. What does he have on deck for year number 3? Spring breakout.
That's not shocking.
Yeah, I was being sarcastic.
I mean, he's been the opening day.
Yeah, I was being sarcastic.
So you said the least shocking news of the day would be that Paul Skeens is the opening day starter.
Okay, I was just trying to be sarcastic. Hey, shout out to former LSU women's golfer Carla Tejado. Made her first career start on the LPGA Tour today. Shot 2 under par at the Founders Cup. Best of luck to her the rest of the weekend. That's pretty awesome. That's Tigers and Pros.
Out here talking about Carla Tejeda, who we wish great things for.
We do.
No mention of Curtis Thompson.
He's not playing.
We're brought to you by Evamore. EVAMOR. Evamore.com. Drink Evamore. I love Evamore so much. If you're a little dehydrated, drink Evamore. High-performance athlete, drink Evamore. If you're just a human being that needs water, because we all need water, natural artesian water, healthier alternative, Louisiana product, drink Evamore. EVAMOR. Find location nearest you or order it online at evamore.com. Evamore.com. EVAMOR. Evamore.com. All right, hour number 3 coming up right after SportsCenter.
AFR.
Trust isn't given, it's earned. And just like LSU baseball earns its success pitch by pitch, inning by inning, FMOL Health, Our Lady of the Lake providers earn trust every day. As LSU's championship health partner, Our Lady of the Lake cares for the defending national champions, keeping Tigers healthy, strong, and ready to perform all season long. From the bullpen to the batter's box, from the training room to the classroom, LSU baseball athletes trust the Lake to help them recover, perform, and stay at their best. And it's not just for athletes. From sports medicine to pediatrics, heart care to recovery from everyday injuries, Our Lady of the Lake brings championship-level care to families across Louisiana. Trust the team that cares for the team you love. Our Lady of the Lake and LSU. Together, we roar. Learn more at olrmc.com/LSU. Our Lady of the Lake and LSU. Together, we roar.